Balochistan is not Pakistan.
Can Balochistan declare its own independence?
Of course it can. Balochis are totally different, fiercely independent people. Maximum resources are going from the Baloch territory.
Can Pakistan survive without Balochistan if the Baloch people get what they want? Balochistan is Pakistan's largest province, covering over 44% of its total land. Highly rich in minerals, natural gas, massive reserves of coal, copper and gold as well. And it holds the strategic Gwadar port, which is the cornerstone of the China-Pakistan relationship. And it also makes it indispensable to both China and Pakistan. But the irony of Pakistan's biggest province is that it is also its poorest and least developed province, as Islamabad uses Balochistan for its richness while it ignores its needs. The Baloch resistance against the Pakistani state began in 1947 and still continues, as now Baloch representative and leader Mir Yar Baloch has declared independence from Pakistan with its own anthem, its own currency and its own armed forces as well. To discuss this further, I am now being joined by Lt Gen D.P. Pandey, highly decorated officer who served the Indian Army for nearly 4 decades, former commander of the Chinar Corps of the Indian Army Northern Command. Pleasure speaking with you, sir. Thanks so much for joining me here on Game Plan. Can Balochistan declare its own independence?
Of course it can. 1947 and before, Balochistan was a totally different state, province. In fact, it was unlike others in the Indian dominion of British-controlled empire, where almost everybody was directly controlled or administered by the British India. But Balochistan remained totally different. It had accepted the paramountcy of British Empire, but only the external affairs was being managed. Internally, everything about Balochistan was being managed by the Baloch people. Khanate of Kalan, and by the way, it is the oldest geopolitical entity in South Asia. Which was totally directly administered by a central system by Khanate of Kalan and bordering certain areas of Pashtun and with Afghanistan. Rest everything was directly controlled by them. So that was existing before 1947. Pretty happy state. There was hardly any challenges. It was surviving on its own with one of the largest sea, you can say, connection to coastline, about 770 kilometers worth of coastline. It has got all the elements to survive independently. Let me just start. I'll just give a brief couple of points before we get into direct question answers. Please understand, Pakistan is an artificial state, right? It is a conglomeration of a couple of very, very different entities which was created, structured together for a British India colonial mindset and strategic fear, I would say, to keep certain degree of buffer zone from the largest resource-rich area of British India, erstwhile British India, from the Soviet Union, because they actually feared the expansion of the communist Soviet, which had actually beaten them in the Second World War in the run to Germany. And in fact, if you look at the World War II, technically it was won by the Russians, Soviets, rather than the Western. So if you go into the history, that was a fear. And while there was a demand by the Muslims, the elite Muslims of United Provinces to have a separate state, it was this urgent need of the masters of that point of time that got Pakistan created. In that point of time, even in 1947, when this whole options went around, the Khanate of Kalat had said very clearly they don't want to merge with Pakistan. They had 2 options. They said priority 1, that they will like to go along with India, whatever India forms. So, but then there was just no land bridge to connect with Balochistan. And of course, that point of time, our leadership possibly thought otherwise. But the second part, what they said, that if it doesn't happen, we are distinct from everything else which British have been controlling, and we will like to go on our own way and we'll be independent, right? So then, of course, that whole conspiracy and the way Muslim League went about, we'll not talk of all that. it was a compulsion that they were stitched together by the Britishers the against the views, against the desires of the Baloch people. And the day in 1947, by the way, nowhere else in the British dominion of the Indian subcontinent, there was an insurgency which started again straight away after 1947.
Yeah.
In 1948, the first set of insurgency movement started against the Pakistani state.
Yeah.
Right? When you compare to the Indian side or anywhere else in the world, nothing of this sort happened. So that clearly showed the aspiration of the people
Yeah.
to remain unique, independent, and the way they live. And they are quite akin, by the way, not in terms of culture, but the way of living from the Pashtun areas of
Yeah.
KPK, even in terms of Afghanistan. Very, very independently minded tribes. They love to live their own life. They don't want to concern with the world affairs. And I'm quite sure that they could have led. And
Sir, allow me to come
look
in
at
there.
what do you require?
Yeah, allow me to come in
Yeah,
there.
okay.
Nearly 80 years it's been since then. 8 decades of struggle and an effort to have their own existence while they're being completely ignored by the Pakistani state. At this point, I wanted to understand from you, and this is a battle-hardened race. They've fought and generations have fought, so it's in their blood. If they decide that they want to have their own state, what is stopping them as of today, 2026?
Yeah, so, okay, but I will just tell you briefly, because this is not the only time they have fought. The major insurgency they fought was somewhere in 70s, right? They have fought a couple of times. Even 50s they had this issue, and this whole thing has been ongoing since 2006, when Bukti got killed. They were a very, very veteran, respected leader of Balochistan, got knocked off by the Pakistani state. What has changed today? What has changed today are a couple of things. One is that generally all the tribes were divided before this whole thing started. Somewhere they took a call about 3 to 4 years back that divided we'll lose, jointly we may be able to win. Our respect with the Pakistanis in the world, and that is where the thing started changing. Today, what is happening is that they are carrying out strikes in a simultaneous time frame. First insurgency was in one area, so the Pakistanis went there and they suppressed it. Then it happened in some other area. It was quite disorganized. It was quite egoistic of the respective tribal leaders. But this time they have come together to fight the Pakistani state. Right. So that is one part. The second is the whole media, the social media, the transparency, and that is why I like social media a lot, or media a lot, that this has allowed them to use social media quite aggressively to put out their voice into the world and into the environment, and also to remain resilient together, right? So while disappearances, while human rights violations are ongoing, all those challenges are there, but yet they are able to persevere and put it out into the world against the Pakistani state. The third very important issue is that this whole harvesting, farming of the resources, which was not so intense, let's say about 3 to 4 decades back, but in last decade and a half, since the time CPEC has come about, the development of Gwadar port has started, the Chinese are taking out materials left, right, and center. They're just taking out everything without the direct benefits coming to the local people, who are just merely 1/6 of the Pakistani population, right? 1/16, 6% of the population. Whereas the maximum resources are going from the Baloch territory. So all these things have put a spot on Balochistan, which virtually controls 44% of nearly half of the Pakistani territory. What are the other challenges, and what are the other ongoing challenges? If you want to know, I can answer those questions as well. I think the first major challenge, the first major challenge is, I think, Iran. What happens is that while Iran and Pakistan may not get along together, but there is a significant Baloch population which spills across into Iran, and Iranians feel that in case Balochis get independence, it is going to come and hurt. And this is a significant terrain and population which is right across towards the Iranian side. So that is
and they have a shared border, sir, with Afghanistan, Iran, and of course they are as of now in Pakistan. So that shared border from both countries there can be concerns from both sides, or is it just Iran?
So I don't think so. Afghans are much concerned because there's a quite fair balance. And on the older times, the concept of borders was not there. It was a frontier concept, right? People could move freely across, and they're not looking at leverages. They're not looking at nation states the way we look at it today. There was a much more free and flow movement was taking place, and therefore, with the Afghans, I don't think there's a major problem because their borders are still quite open to the Balochis. But towards the Iranian side, there's a challenge. So that is one part. The second is they don't have a heft, which is required today in the international environment of the Western powers, which the moment they get that heft and they are able to sell to Trump that whatever Pakistan is giving to you, we will give it to you. Right? And you understand that the Western powers are quite greedy people. They can do anything for the resources can be harnessed directly with them, and they can create or destroy nations and nation states and travel areas or whatever, because if they can get something cheaper direct, that's the way to go forward. The third challenge which is happening is that currently the Trump administration, which is totally focused with the Pakistani establishment because of various reasons, which is a matter of other debate, that will not look at this area with that kind of intensity which is required. And the fourth is the control of the Chinese. Eventually, what is happening is that the maximum benefit today, directly from the Baloch areas, is going to the Chinese.
Absolutely.
Right? And Chinese do play in a bipolar world or multipolar world a significant say in controlling what's happening in any part of the world. So I think these are few challenges.
Understood.
They don't have adequate funding. They got a larger area. And Pakistani military is brutal. It's not like Indian Army or Indian Armed Forces, where you actually carry out operations with both hands tied behind your back and with the courts and everybody putting on a cloth of strip on your eyes, and then everybody wants you to carry out an operation of counter-terrorist or counter-insurgency operation. But yet, things have changed this time, and Pakistan is on a block, on a foot.
And on that point, sir, let me come in on that point. Biggest province of Pakistan, the richest province in terms of minerals for Pakistan, but as a province, it remains the weakest and the poorest in terms of the support it gets. Can Pakistan survive without Balochistan if the Baloch people get what they want?
So, look, firstly, Pakistan today is not surviving. It is just managing itself, right? So, Balochistan or no Balochistan, I don't think Pakistan is a state to be called as worthy of being a state, right? And second is, yes, Balochistan is a huge area, lot of resources come through it. The critical other aspect we forget is that Balochistan provides that land bridge to the Central Asian Republic, to Afghanistan, to the other areas, and more importantly, the coastline, which any country will desire. While they have other set of coastline, but the deep sea port, which is actually available, is in the Gwadar side, which actually remains underdeveloped. But so coming to the point of can Pakistan survive? Yes, of course Pakistan can survive. Pakistan should start looking at what it has. Technically, if you look at Pakistan is today only Punjab. So Pakistan, Punjab should look at what they can do. There are so many other landlocked countries which are smaller, much smaller than Pakistan or Pakistan minus Balochistan. They can survive. But the fact remains that Pakistani Punjabis are such big egoistic people controlled by the Pakistani military generals that they don't care about anybody. It may be Pashtuns, it may be Gilgit-Baltistan, it may be Sindhis, it can be, and of course Baloch. They don't care, right? But they will like to harvest. They don't look at people. They look at resources, they look at territories, which should be owned and controlled by them. Yeah, so, I must say that Balochistan is not Pakistan. Let's be very, very clear. Balochistan is totally distinct from Pakistan. There are many entities, but when you compare the other entities, Balochis are totally different, fiercely independent people. They are different culturally, they are different in the way they live, and they are very, very hardy and good fighters. And I really wish them all the very best to win against the Pakistanis. And I repeat, Balochistan is not Pakistan.
Lt General, absolute pleasure speaking with you. And as far as the Baloch people are concerned, it's been decades, generations have grown up in their struggle and their fight for freedom. They understand hostilities very well. For a race like this, for Pakistan to be using force to keep them subdued, whether that strategy works out for them or before that larger powers take note of what the Baloch people are going through at this point. We'll need to wait and watch how this one pans out for both Balochistan and, of course, the larger state of Pakistan. There will be more to discuss for sure as the headlines keep coming in on what's really taking place in that part of the world. Lt General Pandey, thank you so much for joining me here on Game Plan. Absolute pleasure speaking with you, sir.
Thank you.